Napoleon nearly the same. Observed that the governor had insinuated that he, Napoleon, wanted to kill himself. Had I intended this, continued he, I would have fallen upon my sword long ago and died like a soldier. But to purposely kill myself by the slow agonies of a lingering disease, I am not fool enough to attempt. Je n'ai jamais aimé la longueur. I never loved tedious warfare. But there is no death, however slow and painful, that I would not prefer to dishonoring my character. A man who was once capable of imposing the restrictions of the 9th of October and the 14th of March is capable of laying them on again, or even worse, according to his caprice or his fears, real or imaginary. If I were to go out and be once insulted by a sentinel, it would have the effect of doing more injury to my health than 6 months' confinement. But this man is insensible to any moral feeling. He thinks that he's got some Corsican deserters or corporals to deal with. C'est un mélange d'astuce. It's a combination of stupidity and tricks. Before I had gone out a week, he would make some insinuations, as he perpetually does, to the commissioners and say that I had abused the permission he had given. A large sealed packet addressed to the Earl of Liverpool, given by Count Bertrand to Captain Blakeney, for which a receipt was taken, communicated the substance of what Napoleon had sent to Sir Hudson Lowe, to whom I repeated that whenever Sir George Cockburn made any regulation relative to the French, he was accustomed to discuss the matter with Count Bertrand or Montholon, by means of which they were enabled to make arrangements in a manner likely to give the least offense. Sir Hudson said that his own measures had been approved of by the British government, and that most of the letters which he had received commenced by stating that the Prince Regent approved of, and had commanded that such and such measures should be adopted. 8th, Napoleon walked out for a short time in the garden. Being so little accustomed to exercise, this fatigued him so much that he was obliged to sit down on the steps before the veranda. He was, however, in better spirits than yesterday, and felt benefited by the saltwater baths and such of the other remedies as he would consent to use. The 9th, not so well, got cold yesterday and complains of pain in the lower extremities, and had been very unwell into the night. I was going to send for you early in the morning, said he, but then I considered this poor devil of a doctor has been up all night at a ball and has need of sleep. If I disturb him, he will have his eyes so heavy and his intellect so confused that he will not be able to form any correct opinion. Soon after this, I fell into a perspiration and felt much relieved. Immediately after I had left him, he went to bed again, where he remained for some hours. 10th, Napoleon, in rather bad spirits, legs somewhat swelled. The governor, said he, was at Bertrand's yesterday and professed his wish to accommodate. But he has already done the same so often, without having come to any conclusion, that he will probably end as before. I ordered Bertrand to send for the little Major Gurker, talk the matter over with him, and explain what we want. I conceive that the only guarantee I have for my life consists in having some communication with the officers of the Army and Navy and the inhabitants, for had communication existed before, this governor would not have been able to have continued his absurd restrictions so long as he has. Although the place is small and wretched, and the inhabitants nearly slaves to arbitrary power, still the public opinion would have had some weight. Rumor would have reached England, and John Bull would not have suffered conduct so disgraceful to his country. What I want is to have no mystery or secrecy used about me. Whenever there is mystery, there are always bad intentions. Everything ought to be conducted so that it might be printed, and then nothing would be printed. I care not if the house I live in were made of glass. So ought the proceedings with respect to me be conducted. You recollect that during the Admiral's time no attempts were made to send letters to England, nor ever would, had he remained, because the situation was tolerable. One could live then. I have explained to Bertrand my wishes relative to the receiving of visitors, and told him to communicate to the governor that he may easily arrange the matter by sending up a list himself of such persons as he will permit to visit Longwood, and to require that no insinuation shall be made to prevent them from coming, as he has been the case thereto. We can send everything we please to Europe, and always could, with respect to the commissioners. As policy enters into that, I leave it to them. I have told him already that I would with pleasure receive the Austrian, his wife, and the Russian as private persons. If, however, political reasons oppose it, I care not for it. Though nothing can be more ridiculous than to see those commissioners unable to come inside the inner gate of Logwood when they are permitted to come as far as it, and hold conferences with us as long and as often as they please, which must excite for the author of such absurdities the ridicule and contempt of every beholder. All that I desire is that it may be clearly understood and explained to those commissioners that political reasons alone prevent their being received at Longwood, and that they may not be crammed with such lies as I have been told to them up to this day. They say they have been informed by the governor that it's all my fault, that I have refused to see them, that there does not pass a week in which this man does not make insinuations to them, and that such is the mystery and secrecy observed, that they thought themselves in Venice or Ragusa instead of an English colony. Every week produces hints and insinuations that they have abused this or that privilege. There is nothing in the world makes a man hate another so much as insinuations, especially when they come from one power, because he cannot repel or answer them. With respect to strangers, let them, when a ship arrives, send a list of such as he will allow to come here. I mean of the greater number, and not pick out one or two favorites. If he suspects any of them, let him say so, and no notice will be taken of them, or let him not place their names on the list. If I see strangers at all, it shall be from my own will, and not because he likes it. Let him do this. Let him leave off his insinuations, and above all, let there be no mystery. I shall be contented. I had some conversation with the emperor afterwards about Talleyrand. When I returned from Italy, said he, I went to live in a small house in the Rue Châteauroux, I think. A few days afterwards, the municipality of Paris ordered that it should be called Rue de la Victoire. Everyone sought to manifest the national gratitude to me. It was proposed to give me a fine hotel in Paris and a magnificent estate. Although I had maintained and paid the army for 2 years, and even paid the arrears for some time posterior, and sent more than 30 millions to the treasury of France, I was scarcely worth 300,000 francs. The directory, however, influenced probably by jealousy, would not consent, and said that my services were such as could not be rewarded by money. Every description of persons tried to see me. The enthusiasm was au comble. I rarely, however, associate with other St. Clabert, to say Caffarelli, and some savants. The directory gave me a splendid fete. Talleyrand, who was Minister of Foreign Affairs, gave another. I remained but a short time at either. I was afterwards nominated to the command of the Army of England, which in fact was named so to deceive your ministers as to its real destination, which was Egypt. Talleyrand had been a bishop of Autun during the Revolution and was one of the 3 bishops who swore to the civil constitution of the clergy. He was afterwards sent to England, but becoming suspected during the fury of the Revolution, he fled to America, where he remained until after the 13th Vendemiaire, when his name was erased from the list of emigrants. He insinuated himself into the confidence of the Directory and was made Minister of Foreign Affairs, and as such had constant communication with me. It was then customary to celebrate the anniversary of the execution of the Louis XVI, at which Talleyrand wished that I should attend. I replied that I had no public functions, that I did not like the ceremony, that fetes were celebrated for victories, but that the victims left on the field of battle were lamented with tears, that celebrating the death of a man was not the policy of government, but that of a faction. Talleyrand maintained that it was just because it was politic, that all countries had rejoiced at the death of tyrants, and that my presence was expected. After a long argument, it was arranged that the Institute should attend, which I was to accompany as a member of the class of mechanics to which I belonged, although I avoided public notice and multitude, which paid no attention to the Directory, but had waited to see me go out, filled the air with cries of Vive le Général de l'Armée d'Italie. Never yet, added he, was there a general who was more beloved by his troops. To show you the confidence that I had in the disposition of the army, said he, I need only recount to you an event which will be consecrated by history. 5 or 6 days after my landing at Caen, the advance guard of my little army met the advance of a division marching from Grenoble against me. Cambron, who commanded my troops, wanted to address them, but they would not listen to him. They also refused to receive Raoul, whom I sent afterwards. When I was informed of this, I went to them myself with a few of my guard, with their arms reversed, and called out, the first soldier who pleases may come forward and kill his emperor. It operated like an electric shock. Vive l'Empereur resounded through the ranks. The division of my guards fraternized, all joined me and advanced together to Grenoble. Close by Grenoble, the brave Labedoyer, a young man animated by the noblest sentiments and disgusted by the conduct of the Miserables, against whom France had fought and bled for so many years, joined me with his regiment at Grenoble. I found the regiment in which 25 years before I had been captain, and some others drawn up on the ramparts to oppose me. No sooner did they see me than enthusiastic cries of Vive l'Empereur were heard, not only from them, but from the whole of the National Guard and the populace. The gates were torn down, and I entered in triumph. What is singular, and which strikingly shows the sentiments of the troops, is that in a moment the 6,000 men by whom I was thus joined mounted old tricolored cockades, which they had kept as a treasure when the army had been obliged to adopt the Bourbon anti-national flag. I advanced to Lyon, where I was joined by the troops charged to defend it against me, and the Count d'Artois was happy to escape, escorted by a single dragoon from the city he had commanded a few hours before. To all his entreaties, offers, and prayers, Vive l'Empereur was the reply. While sitting on the steps of the veranda this day, Napoleon observed Mr. Stocco walking with me in the garden and ordered him to be called. He asked him several questions in Italian. Sir Hudson Lowe and Major Gorker were for some time at Count Bertrand's this day. Sir Thomas Reed told me that Sir Hudson Lowe had received a sealed parcel from Bertrand addressed to Lord Liverpool, which he would forward, although he knew that it contained complaints against himself. That he did not care what complaints they made, that if it were not for the blank commissioners, things would be better. He then asked me if I had much conversation with them. I said very little, that I had observed a marked alteration in their conduct towards me latterly. Instead of asking me numerous questions as before, they rarely spoke except upon commonplace objects. He observed that it was very likely the commissioners would tell the French the tenor of my reports on Bonaparte's health, as the French had represented him to be worse than I had described him to be.